Welcome today. Welcome to our conversation. If you are observing the Lunar New Year, Happy New Year. I wish I could say it appropriately in language, but I'm sorry that I can't, but I do want to tell you Happy New Year. And I hope that this year is better than last for everybody that is observing. So we are going to talk about connecting with your teen and talking with your teen and having conversations with your teen, because that is a hard thing. I just left a meeting now where we were talking about how do we connect with teens. And as the adult in your teen's life, sometimes it feels like one day you're talking with your teen and it's great, and the next minute there is no connection. It is very, very frustrating because you don't know what's going on with them. And so how do you have those conversations where you can just feel like you both get back on the same page and you have a good relationship with them? And so today we're going to kind of talk a little bit about how do we as the adults in our teens' life move forward to have conversations. So what is going on with teens? Right now, teens are developmentally exploring their identity. They're changing physically. Everything is changing for them. And that may include challenging long-standing family values, which is not great when you're part of the family that has the long-standing values, because teens developmentally are thinking about who they are separate from your family unit, which does not mean they're walking away from the values that you have. Those are embedded in them and they'll remember them, but they are kind of trying on, like, who am I? What do I want to be? How do I fit in the world? So you may see them taking some risks. And maybe sometimes they're more inclined to talk to other people than you, which I know, I get it, feels like, whoa, they're walking away from me, or like they're pushing the mute button on what I say. They're walking into their room and slamming the door. I don't see them. I don't have connection with them. But communication is really key. So it's one of the most important goals in maintaining a relationship with your teen, is to have open communication and find ways of having those, sort of laying out those conversation starters when you watch their behavior to get them to open up back to you. So we want them to be independent adults. We don't want them to be around us all the time. And we want them to be able to handle whatever life hands them, right? So the last 18 months has been really kind of something where our teens and ourselves have been asked to act and respond in ways that we are not necessarily familiar with. So what we want to have is open conversations with our teens, because that's what's going to help them develop into independent adults, right? So they can come back to us. It's really like, I say this a lot, the key to how do we go from being the manager of our child's life, their children, that when they become teens or adolescents, now we have to move from being the manager into being the mentor in their lives. So how do we do that? Is we do that through our communication skills and through our relationship skills, right? So yesterday we talked about those relationship skills. Today we're talking about how do we have those communication skills. So what are the key elements of having good communication with your teen? Well, one of the most important things is, how do you talk to your teen? So are you both open, and do you feel free to talk about your feelings? And do you feel heard and understood? Do you feel heard and understood from your teen? And does your teen feel heard and understood by you, right? We're sort of hardwired to make things better for our teens. But when it comes to these kinds of relationships, what we really want to do is just to be supportive and listen to them. Can you talk about the little things? Do you talk about, like, how was your day? What's going on? It's icy outside. Should we put salt on the ground? Those kinds of things. Um, because when you're talking about the little things and you're just having those ongoing conversations, then you can talk about the medium big things and you can talk about the really big things, whatever those are to your teens. And remember, our values are not just what we value as important, it's what they feel is easy, so that when you're having a conversation, you have sort of an easy way of sharing things about you because there's no judgment. And the way you build that judgment-free zone is that you try your hardest not to judge what they're saying, and they will watch the way you are modeling the conversation, and they will emulate you as the adult. So if you give them your undivided attention, they will begin to see, oh, I have their undivided attention. I can do the same back. Because it can be really, really hard to overlook building those small foundational steps to communicating with a teen, because we have so much to do in our days. And it's hard because our teens are more independent. So we have to find dedicated time to check in with them. We have to find the time and the space to have those small conversations and those medium conversations, because the small conversations and the medium conversations that are open, stress-free, non-judgmental, dedicated time to talk to them, no consequences involved in those conversations, right? Easy kinds of conversations. They lay the foundation for the harder conversations where you may have to be able to be in enough of a zone or enough of a comfort area where you can say, I need to step away from this. This is hitting really closely. But you have to have those easy conversations in order to have those tougher conversations, so that you can have those parenting conversations around, what do you want to do with your future? Where do you want to go to school? I noticed when I was on Canvas that you're missing assignments, or there's things that are not doing that may not be doing. I got an email that you have been you have mandatory tutoring, which is not a big deal. Everybody does that here. But, how are you going to handle that? So how are you going to go and see those tutors and get that extra help so you don't fall behind in classes? But it can be hard when you get that email that says your student is going to mandatory tutoring, to be like, what? And that's a valid response. You can be like, what? But try to do that before you have the conversation with your teen. And if you know you're prone to doing that, check on how they're doing in classes before you talk to them. So that initial, like, what, is independent. And so when you talk to them, you can have that conversation of, hey, I noticed this is going on. What's your plan? How are you moving forward? So let's go through some ideas and things that you may see is happening with your teen, and how will you then move forward with your teen. So how do you find out what's going on with your teen? We can't ignore when we see different behaviors in our teens, because it all impacts the way they are being in the world. And we can't think that just because I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, just because they are back in school, that all is well and hey, we're done. I mean, everybody wants to be done with this whole like pandemic and everything that's going on in the world, but we're not, and in certain ways. And there could be ways that our teens are still, they're back in session and they're meeting as co-curriculars and they're still playing sports, but they still had a loss. And we have to be able to acknowledge the fact that our teens may still be feeling the loss of whatever happened, right? Maybe they lost friends, or maybe they lost a season in sports, or maybe whatever it is, they didn't go to 8th grade graduation, or whatever it is. So if what some of the things that you want to look for in your teen is, do they have a change in their interest in school, or a mood swing, or are they all of a sudden worried about going places or seeing friends, or have they changed sort of their behavior or their appearance? And that doesn't mean like all of a sudden they're wearing like a different kind of trouser. They really drastically, you see a change in them physically. Or they're talking about not being able to sleep. So those, whatever is the norm, and we know that in our teens, because they're trying on different personalities and relationships, that may be different. But this is something that's really different than the norm, really different than what you usually see. Have a conversation about this situation, and think about and have a conversation starter. And so that's something that you can do on your own. I've noticed that, I know that things are really different, and I know that the last year and a half has been really different. And I noticed that you're really up in the middle of the night. Is something going on? Or I heard that I went to sleep and I heard that you were up a little bit later than usual. Is everything okay? Sort of tie it to something that you notice, like the behavior that you notice, so that you can then say, I noticed this. Is there something that you want to talk about? Or I noticed that you used to do this and now you're doing this. And in a really supportive way, have that conversation starter, and then validate their feelings. And use open-ended questions to ask them about what's going on. Maybe ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? When you go to the doctor's office, the smiley pain things, like, where are you? There have been people, and I'm just going to tell you, in teachers sometimes do this in their classrooms. They will say, like, just show me an emoji of, how are you feeling today? Where are you? Like on the, and I'm happy, or I'm a little bit like neutral, or I'm a little frustrated. Just whatever you can do to sort of help them, when they can identify how they're feeling and they're talking about things, that is so much a part of being able to get through it. And what we want to do in our parenting conversations is, in these adult kinds of supportive conversations, is we are having these conversations because we want to learn how to talk to our teens so that we can establish the trust that is necessary, so that our teens learn to build the resilience that is necessary, because we all feel stress. And what we need to do is have someone help us with the habit of mind of knowing, yes, I'm feeling stress. And sometimes the stress is good, and sometimes the stress can really be overwhelming, but I'm going to build the resilience to get through that. So we can help our teens identify who can help us through it, and break down, like, what can we incur, what can we manage, what do we have control over, and what is beyond our control, so that our teens know, okay, these are things that I can move through with, right? And then what we can do is we can talk about, okay, what can we do to help us get through these things? If it's something that you see is happening a lot, like with every single test, or maybe they have a problem at the end of the month or whatever, they can establish healthy habits and habits of mind that can help them through those things that are stressors. The other thing that's super important is to remember that what you do, how you act, how you talk, how you respond, has a huge impact on your teens. So If it's something that you see, they're not, they're not, they're not practicing wellness, or they're not practicing self-care, or they're not really sleeping well, but you're not sleeping well, and you're not practicing self-care, and you're not drinking enough water, they watch what you do and they see through pretty quickly, like, oh yeah, okay, I should do it, but you're not. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to look inward as well to see, what am I doing? So then what you can do is you can work with them on, how are we going to get through this? What are we going to do? What's our plan to move forward with this? Does that mean, is it something where you can work on, you can contact a counselor? Or is it something where it's a planning thing, a time management thing? Is it a relationship thing where they're going to try something in terms of a relationship? Because what your teens really need to know is that they're supported and they're loved by you, and that home is a healthy place. There's healthy food, there's freedom from like mental stress, and that they're going to be celebrated for their little achievements. Hey, I got all my homework in today. Maybe that's an achievement for them. Maybe it's, hey, I talked to a new friend today. Maybe it's, hey, I got an A on a test, or I got a C on the test and I was not getting a C before, or I got a 2 on a test. I was getting a 1. Now I got a 2 on a summative. Oh my gosh, I got a 3 on a summative. Those kinds of things. Maybe it's a birthday and it's a really great thing. Maybe it's just a day where it was a beautiful day and you're just like, hey, today is a great day for you. Those are all things that we want to make sure that when we talk to our teens, it's not just about the tough things and about the hard things, that they know we're interested in them. We're interested in their hobbies. We're interested in what they're doing. If you notice your teen is taking up cooking or painting or drawing or writing, ask them about that. Ask them to talk to you about it, and have those conversations that are those foundational conversations about the what is interesting in their life. So you build that rapport so that you can then talk about the things that might be bothering them, and you have built the foundation for the things when the big things come up and they really need your support, and you've established that conversation with them and you've established that partnership with them so that they can move forward in a great way. Tomorrow, February 2nd, Groundhog's Day. I think tomorrow's Groundhog's Day. We're going to talk about cultivating your teen's sense of belonging, again at noon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. My name is Mara Gruzhanek. I'm the Family Engagement Coordinator at Stevenson High School, and I really enjoy the fact that you're part of this. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye, everyone.